And this yard, we'd actually put soaker hoses under the mulch for them to water, but it was getting too wet. The sod and the newspaper, it just absorbs so much moisture that they just had to use a sprinkler a few times on it, and it was watered enough. This is the soaker hose method. I'm going to show you a few pictures of it. This is one of my favorite yards. It's one of the first one I did, and I mention it in my book, because this family, they came from the Philippines, and they were confronted with this little space that was a lawn, and they never had lawn. In the Philippines, they had flowers and fruit bushes, and they didn't know how do you manage lawn. So the first year they put weed and feed, because that's what their friends told them to do, and they all got sick, because they're all sensitive to it. They said, forget that. So then their lawn looked dry. It had dandelions. They were embarrassed, but they didn't want to use chemicals. They didn't know what to do. So 12 years later, they found me. And in this case, we did bulldoze it all out because it was totally dandelions. I wasn't sure if the newspapers would work. And brought soil in. And they have helped so many people immigrate that they just called on all their friends. And they were there in their flip-flops and singing songs and spreading the soil. They got a lot of the plants from friends. So irises and Shasta daisies and things like that that grow, and you can split them. And we're almost finished here, just putting down the soaker hoses. So what you do with the soaker hose, it's a porous rubber, so it's just oozing out rubber along in the whole length of it. And you could kind of put it from top to bottom of your yard. Think about where's down. And then you wind it around at the drip line of the plants. So wherever the rain would fall is where you would where you'd put the hose. This is perhaps some better example you can see. And they come in usually 50-foot lengths. So you don't have enough water pressure if you put more than 3 lengths. So 150 feet in a row is the most you want to do. And this yard, we put 3 sets of 150-foot lengths of hose, very big yard. And to keep the kinks down, we put rocks on it in some places. Usually if we're spreading these, they come in a coil. We actually spread them out and lay them in the sun for a few hours. It makes it a little easier to manage them. You can also use like landscape fabric pegs or tent pegs to hold them down. And then maybe once a week, and we covered that with wood chip mulch. So the soaker hose is under the wood chip mulch, and once a week you water for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And they usually say, oh, put it on low. But if you have 150 feet of hose, I put it on high and let it go for 3 or 4 hours. And because you've already got good moist soil in the wood chip mulch, that's all you have to do. And it's not, you're not wasting water because it's not evaporating out into the air like an overhead sprinkler.